Okay, hi YouTube, Mr. User Boss here, and in this video we're talking about the Xperia Z4. So, the Xperia Z3 has not actually even been released yet, but it's actually just around the corner. September the 3rd is, I think, when they're going to announce it, and to be honest, it's turning out to be a bit of a letdown. It's basically using exactly the same body, with pretty much the same components, and honestly, it's just a very bog-standard phone refresh, and it's not really a new model in itself. And to be honest, this is what we've been seeing for the last 2 years from Sony. Their whole flagship phone line has basically not changed at all. And this is kind of getting annoying. If you actually look at their sales figures, they're starting to drop. When the Xperia Z initially released, that actually sold amazingly well. It had really cool features. It was a totally new device. It was waterproof, it was dustproof, it was a really durable, high quality and good looking phone. But when you continue to use the same body again and again and just slightly update the components, it gets old fast. And that's what we're seeing with the Xperia Z3. So I think with the Xperia Z4, Sony has to take a totally new direction if they want to remain competitive. So if you actually look at LG's phones, for example, their progression between the LG G Optimus, the LG G2 and the LG G3, the differences are just absolutely massive. And they're totally new phones, and each phone is significantly better than the last, whereas with the Sony phones, you would literally see no reason to upgrade. Okay, so number one is a larger display. So we've all seen with the LG G3 that a larger display can actually work on a mainstream phone, and the LG G3 sales figures are just a testament to that. It has sold amazingly well. So I think if Sony bumped the screen size up to maybe 5.4, 5.5, something like that, not like an absolutely huge display, we're not talking sort of Galaxy Mega here, but just a large display, because it really does increase the immersiveness. It makes games more enjoyable, movies, everything you do on your device just comes to life on a bigger display, and you sort of, you look back at smaller displays like those on the iPhone and you just sort of chuckle to yourself, really. So with the Xperia Z4, Sony should definitely go with the Snapdragon 810 as their chip. Now I know this is going to cost more, but I am more than certain people will be willing to actually pay for that if they're getting the most powerful chip on the market. Now the reason I say this is this thing is an absolute monster. Not only is the energy efficiency up literally 2 times from the last generation, but the actual performance is literally mind-blowing. So this is an octa-core processor, and as you know, even Snapdragon 800, 801 and 805, they're all quad-core processors, and you've seen how well they perform. So imagine a next-gen architecture with an octa-core processor from the same company. It's pretty mind-blowing. On top of that, the whole graphics core has actually been revamped, and it's built from the ground up to support 3D gaming at 4K resolutions. Okay, and one thing I think Sony should actually stay away from is chips like the Tegra K1, where the CPU is sort of middle of the line, and the GPU is just so incredibly powerful that no games or apps really take advantage of it. So I actually bought the Shield tablet a while ago, and one of the problems I actually found with it was just that even though this thing is by far the most powerful device on the market, Android-wise, the benchmarks will tell you the same thing. They'll tell you this thing's off the charts in terms of performance, but very few games actually utilize that power, and so they just tend to lag and stutter if they are not that well optimized. Another thing Sony can definitely work on is the ergonomics of their devices. So if you've held the Xperia Z, Z2 or even Z3, then you will know that they're not really very comfortable to hold. So for example, with the HTC One M8, it's got this really nice curve. It sort of comes out like this, and it just fits very nicely in your hand. The same goes for the Samsung Round or the LG G Flex. All these phones have actually, the manufacturers spent a lot of time optimizing it to fit in your hand properly, and I think that a bend is a good idea. A curve actually does help with the ergonomics of the device. On top of that, instead of having these really sharp angled edges, then maybe they could just curve them around a bit and still make it look nice. So something else Sony could do to really separate themselves is actually employ a dual SIM functionality into the Z4, and that would basically mean allowing people to put 2 different SIM cards in, which are used for different regions, and the phone would automatically decide which region you're in and switch SIM depending on where you are. And that would basically avoid roaming costs and make international calls a hell of a lot cheaper. So, this is clearly not an expensive thing to do. Even these sort of $20 China phones you buy have that already built into them, so this is definitely something Sony can easily do. Now there is also something that's been really bugging me about this whole Xperia line, is that they've got ridiculously high megapixel counts. So all of these phones, they're coming out with like 20 plus megapixels, and that is a total waste. So as we've seen with phones like the One M8, even a 4 megapixel camera can produce really good images if the lens is good enough. So I mean, you know, for Xperia phones, especially in this day and age, anything over about 8 or 9 megapixels is totally being wasted, and in some cases can actually disadvantage the phone because, you know, there's just not enough light there to actually utilise those pixels, and so you get a lot of grain, you know, and then the cost savings from the less megapixels can be used for a better lens, larger aperture and better software, and so eventually the experience is going to improve. Okay, so the last thing that I really want to say about this is I want something new. Something that's not just a heart rate scanner or a fingerprint sensor or anything like that, because, you know, when a phone comes up with something new, that's when people get excited. If it's just a sort of generic phone with good specs and it looks nice, then it doesn't really create a buzz. For example, the Xperia Z, the first one that came out, that was amazing. You know, the actual sales figures on that were mind-blowing. That was the first truly waterproof device, and that got people excited. You know, the ability to use it in the shower, use it on the beach, without actually worrying about ruining the phone, that's pretty cool. And I just kind of think they've just been resting on their haunches a bit. They've just been milking that sort of waterproofing thing, and they're a bit reluctant to move forward with it, but they need to do something else. Okay, so that's pretty much it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe for more.